Hello and welcome to Pathways. I am your host, Amber Stitt. And today we welcome JamesIBond today. He is a leading behavioral specialist, an author of an amazing book we're going to talk about. And there's so much to dive into with you today. So we're going to hop right into it. And I'm going to welcome you into the show. And then we're going to talk about how you got into the business. So welcome, JamesIBond.
Oh, Amber, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you. In fact, we've been chatting, so here we go.
Here we go. So we were talking about Zig Ziglar, and really the passion for what you do and what you love came from a little bit of a competitive spirit with your brother. And you're the oldest, or wait, are you the oldest of four kids?
Yes.
And you guys were in a similar profession young. Is that really how this all started?
I ran an advertising agency. I actually started I actually have a mechanical engineering background, and I built an advertising agency, and I got into business with my brother, with my middle brother, Johnny. He's fabulous. Actually, interesting things happen, but sometimes family and business don't mix. I love my brother dearly. He's awesome, but he's also a fabulous salesman, but I hated selling. Okay. I mean, but things happen. Like I remember, so we're from Montreal originally. I live in Southern California and lived here for about 37 years now. We named our middle daughter, we gave her the initials LA, Lauren Asia, AJA.
Oh, how
so
fun.
We remember how long has it been here? Well, how old's Lauren? You know, by the way, Asia was named after the Steely Dan album, Asia, and the song Asia. 2 years ago, she said, Dad, everybody loves my name. I love my name, Asia. Where'd you get it from? I said, well, Steely Dan, the song and the album. And she called me back in about half an hour and said, I hate that song. I said, I'm sorry. You know, we give her a name. You know?
Yeah.
But no, she's getting used to it. But
I mean, you've been using brain glue, which we're going to tell the audience about this for, decades, right? It's just been
over 35 years. Yeah. My brother, when we were in business together, we went into Avon Cosmetics in Canada. And the buyer for Avon said to my brother, and me sitting there, but of course he talked to my brother, not me, because he's the salesman. Yeah. But he said, Johnny, it's between you and this other company for this big project they had. And I'd rather work with you guys, but frankly, your price is higher than the other guy. And so my brother leans across the desk and says, why do you think the other guy's so cheap? There's a long pause. And suddenly the guy says, I get your point. Hang on, I'll write you up a purchase order. I thought my head was going to explode. What just happened? We didn't have to lower our price. He's hiring us because our price is higher. And it made me realize, it's one of the things that made me realize that, like, you know, selling and the concept of persuasion. I come from a mechanical engineering background, so I love the mechanics of things. But I also learned I have a logical background. Okay. And most people are logical, but selling is emotional, not logical. And that's one of the things that really blew my mind is like understanding passion. You know, we get passionate about stuff, but then I don't know if it came from school or what it was. We come up with a logical way to describe something we're passionate about. Well, I hated selling back then, but I had to sell because we had overhead and I had, you know, a studio and everything else. And I saw Zig Ziglar, and Zig Ziglar uses a lot of brain glue type tools. He's passed away, but he did back then, and he changed my life. I got to see him live. I mean, one of the things he said was, you have to have an attitude of gratitude. I love that one. He said, you need a checkup from the neck up to avoid stinking thinking so you don't get hardening of the attitudes. You know, he's putting all these things together that really resonate. But what he said to me that changed my life was selling is nothing more than a transference of passion. Okay? If you're passionate about something, if you saw a movie you love or whatever it was, or you have a product that is amazing and you could transfer that passion to somebody else, then they'll want to buy it. Because we buy stuff for emotional reasons. We think it's logical. There's often has to be logic involved, but not always. That's why, you know, stand at the cash register saying, oh, that looks cool. You buy those impulse purchases. Okay, one of my favorite books was Predictably Irrational. I mean, it's phenomenal because it's, you know, we're predictably irrational. That's what humans are like, okay?
I know.
But we are creatures of habit and patterns are wired into our brain. And let me give you a story, okay? Brain glue works on the patterns, okay? So you've heard this, but I'll share this with your audience, is Jack and Jill went up the, okay? Everybody knows hill. Now, I'm old, so we may have remembered the last time we heard it was 10, 20, maybe 50 years ago or more. Yeah. But we still remember it like it was yesterday. Because rhyme works, the pattern sticks to our brain. When O.J. Simpson, you know, was being prosecuted for the murder of his wife and her friend, Johnny Cochran, his attorney, said, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit. Okay?
Yeah.
How much did that stick to the brain? After the trial, and he was found not guilty, he exaggerated, obviously, his putting on the glove, you know, and all that stuff. The glove didn't fit him. But After the trial, 2 of the jurors were being asked, with all that evidence against OJ, how come you found him not guilty? And one of them answered while the other one was nodding her head in agreement. She said, we knew if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. The glove didn't fit. We had to acquit. That's how
pre-programmed in their head.
Oh, it's amazing how they have this mom and her son in Utah. They have no business experience, and yet in less than 2 years, they generated $100 million of sales. $100 million with no experience. How did they do that? They used rhyme. Okay, so here's what they did. And they also used related words. So she had a problem when she went to the bathroom. She had a real problem. Okay. And so just with how she processes foods and going to the bathroom, I don't want to get too much into that. But they realized there's a physical thing where if you're sitting on a stool about 6 or 8 inches tall, and you're putting your feet on a stool, it changes the shape of your body, so it's easier to go to the bathroom. How do I get more into that? But that's that, okay? And so they think, okay, great. Maybe we can make this and sell it to people. So what will we call it? Well, it's the toilet stool. But we don't want to call it toilet stool. That doesn't sound good. My wife says it's the stool. That would work, but I don't think so, okay? We're not going to get into that. But they're thinking toilet. So what's another word for toilet? Potty. Okay, and I'm kind of squatting. Squatty potty. Let's call it the squatty potty. Yeah. Sales exploded. People would laugh. But they understood the power of rhyme, that rhyme sticks to the brain. I mean, I said squatty potty now. How many people have never heard of squatty potty? And I bet if somebody asked you in an hour, what's that toilet stool called again? You'll know it's squatty potty because it sticks to the brain. Rhyme sticks to the brain, which is amazing. You know, I mean, and so we started realizing when we're trying to sell something, if we can put a rhyme. So let me give you a bad one, okay? So Wonder Bread invented sliced bread, Wonder Bread, okay? And so when people say, wow, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, they don't realize that they're actually referring to Wonder Bread because they invented sliced bread. You used to get bread and you used to have to slice it yourself. So Wonder Bread invented it, but they bleached the bread and everything else. So for 10 years, Wonder Bread dominated the bread industry. And then competitors, after 10 years, came up with a phrase that was so profound, it forced them almost into bankruptcy. Literally, almost everybody stopped eating Wonder Bread, okay? So what's the phrase? The whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead.
Oh my gosh.
So listen to this, okay? So we had COVID, so we went through COVID and all that stuff. Back then, in the early 20th century, they had something called pellagra. And pellagra is an absence of vitamin B3 in your system, makes you susceptible to stuff, and people actually get sick and die. And so because Wonder Bread bleached their bread, they destroyed most of their vitamins and minerals in it. And because of that, the white bread actually has no vitamin B3. Today they put niacin, which has vitamin B3 in it, okay? But so literally everybody's buying it. And suddenly, back then they didn't have TV. I don't think they had TV. So they told it to journalists, and journalists would put headlines, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. And people would read the headline and go, oh, wow, don't buy Wonder Bread anymore. It's white bread,
We've been reading these headlines for forever and just believing everything we read, right?
Yeah,
but in this case, the B3 was gone.
Well. That's right. I don't believe everything you read. But in this case, what happened was Wonder Bread decided to enrich food. So they would start putting niacin and vitamins and minerals inside the bread. And then they were able to come back. They never came back to dominate, but they came back. But it's amazing that just the power of rhyme, got O.J. Simpson off from a murder trial, almost bankrupted Wonder Bread. And these are negatives or positives, but it works both ways. It's amazing. And it's just because it sticks to the brain. And when you realize the brain's patterns and start applying it, it takes off like gangbusters. I mean, it's fun.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. You're doing what you love. On my podcast, I always like to talk about focusing on talents and really applying. You've talked about passion. I feel like you've been doing what you love and reiterating and having variations of it for a long time. And then the Brain Glue book, I want to talk about that. And this is really coming out of lessons learned from behavioral management and you doing research. Is that really how this became a thing?
Absolutely. Originally in Montreal, I had an advertising agency and worked my way up to eventually win major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex Watches, Avon Cosmetics, as I was talking about. Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And I had the opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. Of course, I'm a logical guy, so I had powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs, right? And we lost. And who we lost to, we deserve to lose. And it's a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain. And cracking the shell.
That was my age group, 1980s,
Okay. We got it. Drop the egg into a sizzling frying pan. That was an exaggerated sizzling sound. That's a Brain Glue tool, okay? It's called sense elevation, but exaggerated sizzling sound. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? When I saw that, I became terrified. I recognized this was infinitely more powerful than the logical proposals that we had. It was emotional selling, and I didn't know how to do emotional selling. How could I be in advertising and marketing and life and not know how to do emotional selling? And so I love 3x5 cards. Girls don't have it as much as guys do. So we have our pocket. So I can put my 3x5 cards in my pocket. Okay, all the time. I love 3x5 cards because if I see something that could be useful or that is triggers for me, I'll write it down. So I wrote down your brain on drugs on a 3x5 card. And I decided to create a passion box where right next to my computer, I put a box. And every time I saw something that's emotional selling, that's passionate, and it doesn't have to be just product, although I put products and ideas and services in there. Every time I'd hear a quote from somebody famous and I go like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I'd write it down and I put it in my passion box. And I was in Montreal. But after 10 years, we had moved to Southern California and I met John Gray. And John Gray wrote this amazing book, one of the greatest relationship books ever. And it was called Men, Women, and Relationships. I see you nodding your head because you know what I'm going to say, okay?
I think I do. I think I know that author, but let's see.
So, and it only sold a few thousand copies. When he changed the title, it exploded to over 50 million copies. So what's the book? So he's sitting and talking to an audience to try to promote his book. It's men and women in the audience. And he says something and all the women start laughing hysterically. And all the men look at the women and go, what was so funny that you're laughing at? And so he says, it's interesting that some things women laugh at and men don't understand, and some things men laugh at and women don't understand. And one of the women says, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet are men from? He said, I guess men are from Mars. And everybody laughed. So when he got home, he said, well, if men are from Mars, where are women from? Well, I guess women are from Venus, the god of love, okay? So then he thought, well, people aren't buying my book, but when they read it, they love my book. But they don't pick up the book to buy it. What if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and then tweak the content just a little bit so I refer to it throughout the book, but keep the same basic book? What do you think happened? Almost overnight, 500,000 copies got sold, then 1 million, then 5 million. Wow. In my book, I wrote that he sold 10 million copies, but I know Steve Harrison had helped him market. And Steve Harrison said, no, you're wrong. I said, I did my research. He said, no. We're over 50 million books sold already. 50 million. Oh he went from 20,000 to 50 million just by changing the title. It blew my mind.
Now, was that a rhyme or was that the other type?
No, that's a metaphor. A metaphor. Okay. So, or simile. So what you want to do is, it's just like what?
Because Uranus wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have been as cute. No, Even though I think they might have been. You might be over there. Maybe Mars and
different people would have bought it. I'm not sure he would have sold 50 million, but he might have sold a lot. Okay, you're hitting on a good one, okay? The trigger words is one of them, okay? I'll get back to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus in a second, but you're talking about trigger words, okay?
I threw you off there. I gotcha.
So what does billionaire Richard Branson, Madonna, and olive oil have in common?
I don't think I want to know. No, I'm just kidding. They're not. Are they cooking together?
Virgin oil, olive oil. Madonna wrote like a virgin.
Yeah.
Touched by the very first time, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That made her super famous. And he was a young kid who borrowed money from his dad, didn't have a lot of money. He borrowed money from his dad to start a little magazine. And eventually he started representing musicians. He ended up getting the Rolling Stones and some really amazing musicians. And he decided to call his record company, that's how he got them, Virgin Records. Virgin Records. Now he's got Virgin Airlines, okay? Mm-hmm. When he realized how powerful the word virgin is, because people go like, huh? Virgin?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He started buying Virgin Construction Company, Virgin this, Virgin that. And he's got all these trademarks of all these Virgin companies, even though some he has and some he doesn't. But he recognized that when you use a trigger word, it really wakes up the brain. I'm going to give you a trigger word that I was thinking about recently. Stupid. Would you call people stupid? Okay.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly. If it said keep it simple, would we remember it as much as keep it simple, stupid? No. Okay. Yeah. So President Bill Clinton had James Carville. Okay. James Carville was training him that it's the economy. It's the economy. But that's not his phrase. His phrase was, it's the economy, stupid. He's telling a president that. That's not something you can tell presidents. But it's the economy, stupid became one of the slogans that they had. If it was, it's the economy, would it have stuck to the brain like it's the economy, stupid? Right. No. How about For Dummies books? My friend Steve Harrison did the For Dummies. Who calls hey, if you're a dummy, read my book, But it's for dummies, and it's exploded in sales.
It's that hook. So when you're talking about the brain glue, it's that thing that's going to stick it and just tie it and link it together.
How about the word dirty? Dirty Dancing? You ever seen Dirty Dancing?
That you don't even have to go there. That was my age group, the soundtrack times 2. There was 2 of them. Everyone wanted to be Baby.
Yeah, exactly. So I got Dirty Dancing. We got Dirty Harry. Okay.
Dirty Disability. No, that wouldn't work. Yeah, I can't use that for disability insurance. Dirty Disability.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, you might. That's a dirty. Have you seen the dirty policy you've signed?
Dirty policy.
I have a vomit. So I do work with finance companies, and some of them, they'll look at an insurance policy. And so vomit is a trigger word. Okay. And so I would train them to do this, and they had a lot of trouble because they'd laugh and they go, oh, it makes sense, but they had trouble applying it. Yeah. So I'd have to coach them while they're with a client. They'd look at a policy that they already have, and they would say, I don't want you to vomit, but have you seen what's in this? What? Okay. Trigger word. Here's how trigger word. So we're training people with finance, okay? They were telling me, I want to let people know that if you spend like $100,000 a year, then if you make $1 million at the age of 70, by the time you're 80, you're going to be broke because $100,000 a year times 10 is $1 million. So they said, we want to help people understand it. Well, you want to, start making a good amount of money off your money right away, okay? And so I love the word vomit for this one. So I came up with this phrase, and I would actually have to coach them in front of clients to do this, because we say stuff to clients and we think they're listening, but they're not really listening. Their mind is distracted. Okay. But if you use a trigger word,
down with insurance talk.
Exactly. Yeah. So I said, so if you make $1 million, if you're able to save $1 million and you spend $100,000 a year, if you make $1 million by the time you're 70, by the time you're 80, you're going to be broke. Who hires somebody at 80 years old? Well, I guess McDonald's hires people because they need someone to clean the vomit out of the parking lot. Okay. When I say that, it's amazing how eyes go, what? What did he just say? There's a Blue Emu.
So if you can inject the word vomit into anything and you don't get a weird response, then they're not listening. So you could use that with spouses, I suppose.
Yeah, you can. It works with our kids. Try it with adults, parents. So Blue Emu is arthritis cream. Okay. And so I'm watching TV while I'm doing something else, like multitasking. And that had Johnny Bench, who's like this famous baseball player. And he says the quote, and he says, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink.
Yeah.
What did he just say? What did he just say? Now you got my attention. It works fast and you won't stink. What? But it works because it wakes up the brain. These things wake up the brain. So I'm trying to get major magazines to review my book, to read my book and review it. And so I sent it to about 28 different writers who are working for major, New York Times, stuff like that. But I used a quote, my quote. That was my dirty week. I was into all the dirty things. I said, this is the headline of the email I sent. The dirty truth about an article you wrote. Okay. And then I decided, I said, I used the word dirty truth because dirty is a trigger word. I talk about that in my book, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not totally tricking them. Within 24 hours, 2 of them immediately contacted me and said, okay, send me your book. I'm very interested. You got me with this dirty truth thing. And, I was like, wow, it worked. So when I first learned brain glue, it wasn't called brain glue back then. I understood how the process. Eventually, I realized it sticks to the brain like glue, so it's good to call it brain glue. I had a construction company that I was coaching. There were these 3 partners who, after 10 years, had $2 million of sales. That's not bad. $2 million of sales, right? Ha! I got them from 2 to 10 million in 1 year, and they went to 32 million 2 years later. How did I do it? Okay.
Elmer's glue for brains. Nope, no trigger there.
Exactly. There we go. By the way, I went to ChatGPT and I said, can you come up with slogans for me? Because I've got these slogans like switch your pitch if you want to get rich. That's my slogan. Or you want to light the fire of desire in your buyer. So they said, why brain glue? Because plain glue doesn't stick to the brain. Of course, you have to go through 100 different ones that are stupid before you finally get a good one.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so these 3 construction guys, okay? So I love whiteboards. I pull out a whiteboard and I said, let's make a list. It took you 10 years to get $2 million in sales. Let's make a list of all the different types of clients you've worked with. And it took a while. Who else? What else? So we created a long list. So I said, now let's play a game. Let's pretend you're only going to choose one of them to go after and you're not going to go after anybody else. Who would it be? And they said, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to say no to people. I said, I got it, but we're playing a game. Okay. Wink, wink. It's not really a game. I'm getting them to niche down. But so they went through it and they said, you know what? fire restoration for insurance companies. Now, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know, construction, so they had to explain it to me. But it's every time an insurance company has somebody that has a fire, they would call these guys in. They had 3 experiences. One insurance company gave them 2, and the other one gave them 1. Clients that they went in. And they said, what we do is we go in, and the first thing we do is if there was a fire in the building, we check the frame. If the frame is damaged, you got to tear down the whole building. But if it's not damaged, then we can actually fix it up and make sure it doesn't catch fire again and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we could focus on fire restoration for insurance companies. So I said, okay, then what's the first word they think of when their client has a fire? And they were like going, oh, I said, come on, let me give you a hint. What's the first word they think of when their client has a fire? Okay, fire. So why don't we call you guys the Fire Extinguisher for insurance companies? We'll get the website, firex.com. They started laughing. They said, I don't know if we wanted to do that. I said, okay, I go out with you on presentations. I went with them on 2 presentations. And I said, so just think of us as the fire extinguisher for your insurance company. Every time a client has a fire, we won't put it out, but we'll fix it. We're your fire extinguisher. Of course, the client laughed, which is, by the way, a brain glue tool. Laughers are buyers, okay? But they started laughing. And guess what they did? When the guys got back, the phone started ringing. And again, and again, and again. They went from 2 million to 10 million in sales while the clients were laughing to 32 million of sales 2 years later.
Oh, my gosh.
All because we understood a pattern in the brain. And then I got to give you this. I love this one, how patterns in the brain works. So we record stuff like I love, history things. Not all the time. I hated history in school. I don't know why it wasn't that good, but it's fun now. I love the History Channel and some of those things.
It's a different setting.
So they're talking about this guy, Bobby Flay, who you may know, okay? And I said, I kind of know the name, but I don't know who he is. He's a famous chef, okay? So he created a show. What was the name of the show? Boy Meets Grill. So what's in our brain? Boy Meets Girl. We know that one, okay? So he changed it. We call it anchoring, where you're going to take something that already exists in the brain, and you're going to tweak it so that you don't have to tweak it. Holiday Inn, most people don't know this, that Holiday Inn started. There was a movie called Holiday Inn with Bing Crosby and somebody else that was really famous at the time. And so when the guy who started Holiday Inn wanted to come up with a name for his hotel, he said, well, Holiday Inn is really popular. Everybody already likes the name Holiday Inn. Let me call it Holiday Inn. He was able to steal the name from the movie. The rest, as they say, is history. So, so Boy Meets Grill became successful because it sticks to the brain. Boy Meets Grill. He talks about grilling food. By the way, on this show, they also talk about Jamie Oliver, the naked chef. Talking about trigger words.
What?
Is he naked? By the way, I saw this thing on TV. In Russia, they had the naked weather girl, and she was actually naked while she told the weather. That got lots of attention. Okay?
I'm sure.
I don't know.
Yes, and I'm really not going that route in my business line. And we're going to link up how people can find you. And obviously, the Brain Glue book has so many different layers of ways to help businesses and people in their business, but probably just individuals in general with communication skills. Before we are done today, I want selfishly to know, how do we use Brain Glue for moms?
I was tortured because this woman comes up to me and says, you're an expert at Brain Glue. Can you help me with my kids? It's like, okay. I was just thinking naked for a second. So if you're selling insurance, you could talk about, like, there are a bunch of crappy insurance agents out there that just kind of work for, I don't know, they want to make a commission, and they'll sell you the thing that's the most expensive so they can make the most commission. Yeah. And so you could always say, I want to give you the naked truth about insurance agents.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wakes up the brain. Here's how Brain Glue works, okay? So I was struggling with this, and then I came up with it. And sometimes, something has to happen. You hear that, and then you can relate to what you're solving a problem. So I'm trying to think of, how do I come up with a good metaphor to describe Brain Glue? I think I have a really good one. I'll share it with you, but let me tell you how I came up with it first. So I have these 3 women who were very religious. And so I wanted to tell a joke. I love telling jokes. I'm terrible at telling jokes. You'll find out in a moment.
I don't believe it.
I love telling jokes, and jokes are good. I know this attorney, one of America's top 10 attorneys. I can't say who it was. And he wins cases by making the judge and the jury laugh. Because when somebody laughs at you, they like you. It's just a funny thing. This guy was telling me, I have a date with this girl that I love, is the love of my life. She never went out with me. I started following what you said inside Brain Glue and telling her some jokes. And guess what? I got a date. It's like, okay. Yeah. Let me tell you the mommy one. So the mommy said, she had a whole bunch of them, but I'll give you a quick one, okay? She said, my son, he's 14 years old, and he asked me a tough question. He said, Mommy, why do we have to follow so many rules in life? Oh, okay. So I said, I was brainstorming with the mom, and I said, well, what rhymes with rules? How about fools? Only fools don't follow rules. So that's one. Let's come up with a metaphor also, okay?
Girls rule, boys drool. Is that one?
Okay, boys drool. No. That would have been great. I wish you were there.
My daughter knows that
awesome. Boys drool, okay, when they don't follow rules. Okay. But I came up with one with her, and I sat down with her and her son. I said, you were asking your mommy, why do we have to follow so many rules in life, right? And he said, yeah. I said, well, think about it. If you're thirsty, you could always drink out of the toilet. But why would you want to? Remember, only fools don't follow rules. He looks up at me and he goes, that makes sense. First, getting a 14-year-old to say anything makes sense is a miracle. So I escape before he asks me another question. But does it really make sense, or did I just simply trigger the emotion centers of the brain?
But that's fun. And that makes it, that's a fun story and something you can share with people. And it's silly and goofy. And gosh, we need more of that in the world. Don't you think?
I heard this thing that sort of goes with this. It's called anchoring, where you put two things together. Is you can't hug a child with nuclear arms. You know? Yeah. I mean, so you don't really go together, but you can't hug a child, so you're emotional, with nuclear arms. Okay. Just a quick thing. So a metaphor for brain glue, how it works is this. When you leave your home, you drive down the street and you look at all these homes or apartments, wherever you live, okay? You don't look every day and go, oh, look at that one, look at that one. You ignore them because you're going to this place and you drive past all these homes. But one day you get in your car and you're driving down the street, and 2 homes down, there's flames coming out of the window. What? Does he know his house is on fire? Did they call 911? Is it going to burn down my house? It's a trigger that triggers the brain. Brain glue is like that. You want flames coming out of your book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. How did I buy the book? I'm in a store. I go, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What? Picked it up, which is the first step to buying it is picking it up, right? I picked it up and I started checking it out. Oh, wow, this is really cool. And I ended up buying the book. So you want flames coming out of your, whatever you're saying, your content, your book, your phrase, like I said, like Warren Buffett said, only when the tide goes out do you realize who's been swimming naked. Okay. It's like, what did he just say? What he's basically saying is only when times get tough do you realize who's really competent. But if you say that, it goes in one or out the other, because yes, you can relate to it, but it doesn't stick to the brain. But if you say only when the tide goes out do you realize who's been swimming naked, it wakes you up and it sticks to the brain, and you want to share it with other people. It's lots of fun. Guess what Warren Buffett just said,
Right.
And it's just, really works. That's why brain glue is so much fun, and it's so powerful. I mean, it's powerful enough to get somebody off from an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial.
I know.
Lawyers use it. They use it to make their audiences laugh. I mean, it's just amazing. So when we understand how the brain works and emotional selling, it just makes such a big difference, even with kids.
Yeah. You are so much fun. Everyone needs to check out Brain Glue. I can't wait to pick up my copy, and we'll link up how people can find you, to work with you and read about your work. It was such a delight to have you on the show today. So many good nuggets of wisdom and just kind of silly ways to just help improve our memory too. So I love that.
And
thanks so much for being here. And get rich. Yeah. We haven't even talked about the money.
Are you afraid of getting rich? Come on. You won't believe how easy. I mean, I'm floored by how easy this is. Yeah. And it's like when I first made 7 figures, that was scary. It's like, oh, did I just break the law or something? Because it's like, wow, so much money is coming in. Not today. Hey, it's fun. But, you guys will have fun out there too. I mean, everybody, it's easier than we all realize when we apply Brain Glue.
Financial freedom through Brain Glue. I love it. Thanks again, James. I can't wait to see what else you're up to.
Oh, Amber, thank you so much for having me. You're lots of fun.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Pathways. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, the blog, and so much more, please visit my website at amberstitt.com. And remember, let's take action today. Thank you for listening.